Okay. So the second verse for the second verse for renunciation goes like this: the freedoms and advantages are rare, and there is no time to waste. Reflect on this again and yet again, and dispel attachment to this life. So normally, when we practice on renunciation, there's the obstacles or the hurdle to practice renunciation is twofold. One is um, uh, one is the attachment to one is the attachment towards the fortunes and the luxuries of this life, the good fortunes and luxuries of this life, and the other is that of the next life. So even though this life, meaning the life that we are currently enjoying, even in the life that we are currently enjoying, there is a lot of misery, there's a lot of suffering. Even though there is a lot of suffering and misery, we just call it life, and we just say, oh, life is full of ups and downs. So ups and downs is part of our life, and so therefore we should go on with it. But the truth is, of course, ups and downs is the part of samsaric life, but there is a life beyond that, beyond samsara. There is a life which is no longer tethered, which is no longer clung towards the ups and downs of samsaric life. And so in order to get in order to get that, in order to renounce the luxuries and the good fortunes of this life, so we need to think of the rarity, and we need to contemplate on the rarity, and then the preciousness of our life. So even though we do have lots of good things to enjoy in our life, they are not to they are not to stay permanently. Everything is temporary, everything is fleeting. Whether it's your property, whether it's your youth, whatever, everything that you call is your own, are there for no more than 100 years, and then it's all gone. And to get a life as to get a life that we are enjoying at the moment, it's not easy. So there is the life that we are enjoying, we have all the capabilities, all the abilities to judge, to determine, to distinguish, to decide what is right and what is wrong. So we have all those advantages. Whether we use those advantages or not is another matter, but we do have all the advantages and the freedoms to decide what to do and what not to do. We have the freedoms, and we have the advantage, or we have the potential to enjoy and to gain those freedoms. So, and these kind of freedom, this kind of luxury is not enjoyed by everyone, and and we all know that there is the law of causality, cause and effect. Without proper causes and conditions, there will be no effect, there will be no result. So all the freedoms and the advantages that we enjoy have come from an appropriate source, appropriate cause, and those causes are very difficult, extremely difficult to come by. And all these things put together brings to us the freedoms and the advantages that we are enjoying. And so therefore, there's no time to waste. There is, it is not something that we should be wasting. We should be wasting in vain. And so therefore, we should reflect on this again and again and again, and thereby dispel our attachment towards the current life. And so, thinking in such a manner, we dispel the attachment towards this life. So I think attachment uh, is what renunciation is all about. So you are renouncing your attachment towards a certain thing. So we talked about in last week's teaching pure renunciation. Renunciation. So there is renounce different things, right? So I renounce onions, right? Because I can't stand the smell of onions, or I can't stand the smell of blood, and so things like that. We can renounce different things in different trivial things, small things. There are many ways of renouncing different things in our day-to-day life. But when we talk about proper renunciation or pure renunciation, we are talking about renouncing everything samsaric, everything in samsara, all of samsara itself. So in this regard, by dispelling the attachment towards this life, we we clear one part of the renunciation. We fulfill one part of the renunciation. So there's two sides. One side is the attachment towards this life, and the other side is attachment towards future lives. So renunciation, attachment towards this life is common to all ordinary sentient beings like us. So we are attached to our body, our property, our loved ones, and so on. So this is the most difficult one, because this is what we have been dealing with since our birth. So it's very difficult to renounce the the lives and the properties and the people of concerning to this life. But if you are a Dharma practitioner, if you are a serious practitioner, you may be able to renounce attachment to this life, but you may still be attached to, in a sense, you may still be attached to a better life in the next, for a better life in your next birth. Let's say in a God realm, okay, this life I'm very poor, so I want to be born as a very rich person in a rich family next life. I am quite uneducated, illiterate in this lifetime. So, may I be born in a life, in a family where the whole family is very well educated and can provide me with education and so on and so forth. Or in this lifetime, I have this and that disabilities. So may I be born in next life with this and that abilities. So sometimes we think in such manners as well. And that is also a form of attachment. That is also a form of attachment, because you still want to come back to samsara. You still want to come back to the prison. You just want to be a better person in prison. It's not, you don't want to escape. From a point of view, strictly speaking, from a Dharma point of view, it's again a wrong view. And so being attached towards a better future life meaning in the next lives, that is like longing for a better cell in the prison, longing for better accommodation in the prison. So of course, the conditions and have changed. Before, you used to be in a very bad condition in the prison. Now you want a better prison, but you are still in the prison no matter what. And you will be in prison as long as your crimes are there, and the crimes come from the what we call the unfailing effect of karma. the unfailing effect, meaning whatever positive or negative deeds you commit, the effect of that action will always follow you, no matter what. They will never fail to follow you. So it's called the unfailing effect of the karma. So because of the unfailing effect of the karma, we have done over hundreds of years of our previous lives. We have done lots of negative deeds. Of course, we have done a lot of positive deeds, but also we have done lots of negative deeds, which are bound to give us the present treatment, which will bind us to samsara, no matter what. So therefore, in order to it's like in order to be free, in order to be released from this person, in order to be released from this prison called samsara, we need to see this as a prison. If you know it is a prison, you will have the first thing is that you have the will and the wish to escape, to come out of that prison. If you think this is your home, you will stay here forever. You will not come out of it. So in order to come out of the house, come out of that place, you need to know that this is not where you belong, that this is a prison that you have been put in because of your crimes. So therefore, to dispel attachment towards the future lives, contemplate repeatedly the unfailing effects of karma and the sufferings of samsara. So that is the third and the fourth line of verse number 4. So the first verse was the importance, details the importance or the necessity of why we should take renunciation. The second verse deals with what is renunciation. Now the third verse deals with what is renunciation? I mean, what is the how do you know when you have a proper renunciation? So we know the importance of renunciation, we know the definition of renunciation. So what does it mean to have renunciation? What will be the changes within yourself when you have renunciation? So what are the markers, what are the signs of having being able to renounce the samsara? What will be the signs? So Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa details the signs of attaining, or not. We don't call it attaining renunciation. We just say being able to renounce. So being able to, what are the signs of being able to renounce samsara? Or in other words, what is the sign of a true renunciation? So this we will deal in with the upcoming line, with the upcoming verse. We will deal with that. So now we will be going through the third verse. So the third verse details about the signs of having renunciation. So the first verse detailed about the importance and the necessity to have renunciation. The second verse we just covered details the definition of renunciation. The third verse now tells us the signs of having renunciation. Okay, we know what renunciation is about. You know, this is renunciation, that is renunciation, right? That is the text side, that is the textbook thing. But renunciation within, this is what counts for more. So how do you know whether you have renunciation within or not? So this will be taken. This we are going to tackle in the upcoming line. Okay. So the next line is the sign of having renunciation within yourself. So this is in regards to last week there was a question about how do we know whether we are on the path, right? And then we have a very lengthy conversation about the being on the path, or being on the path and merging into the path, or internalizing the path. Strictly from a traditional Dhamma point of view, just because you are practicing Dhamma doesn't mean you are on the path. To be on the path, it means to merge with the path, to internalize the path, and with that, for which you have to whatever practices that you are doing must come to you spontaneously, without with less effort than anything. Of course, there will be a slight effort, but it should be less effort. It's like drinking a cup of tea or things like that, which is very ordinary thing. And of course, there is some effort taking place when you drink a cup of tea, but it's much less effort than, let's say, driving a car. So if you have never done something before, or if you are not familiar with a certain action, then it takes more effort than ever to do so. So in similar lines, the renunciation. So when we say whether we have true renunciation or not, we are talking about internalizing the renunciation, not just talking about the renunciation in a textbook style, but actually actualizing renunciation, or internalizing renunciation, or as I said last week, merging with the path, not just being on the path. So okay, so in this regard, being true renunciation comes when you have accustomed yourselves to thinking in such ways. Thinking in such ways meaning we covered the first two verses, right? The importance of renunciation, the necessity and importance of renunciation, as well as the definition of renunciation. So when you think over and over and over on the first two verses, or the meaning behind the first two verses, then hope, your expectation, maybe expectation is a better word rather than hope. Your expectations for the pleasures of samsara will cease to exist any longer, and throughout day and night, you are always longing for liberation. You are always longing for escape from samsara, and when this thing comes, then true renunciation has been born. So let me read the verse. When through growing accustomed to thinking in this way, hope for the pleasures of samsara no longer arises even for an instant, and throughout both day and night you long for liberation, then at that time true renunciation has been generated or born. So in other words, if you look at the third line of this verse, it says, through both day and night you long for liberation. So it means you are longing for liberation day and night. You're longing for, like, when a loved one departs from our life, when someone very close to you, a family member or a friend, departs from your life, then you keep thinking of that person day and night. Every moment, every passing moment, you are thinking about that person. So similarly, that when you are thinking about that person, you are actually practicing attachment, not detachment, because you want to be with that person, you long for that person's presence, and so on and so forth. But with renunciation, you long for the absence. You long for the absence of the person, of the pleasures of samsara, of the all the so-called good things and the happiness that we seemingly good things and good fortunes and happiness of samsara that we so long for, and we so feel that we need it, that we feel as we need it. So samsara, being wanting to get out of samsara day and night, every living moment, every moment of your breathing, living moment, you want to come out of samsara, you want to escape samsara, you want to renounce the samsaric world, you want to detach yourself from the pleasures of samsara, and that is the sign when it all becomes spontaneous, right? Spontaneous does not mean there is no effort or there is no difficulty. When you long for someone you love, when you miss that person, when you cry and so on and so forth, missing that person, of course, there is an effort, there is pain and so on and so forth. There will be pain involved, there will be efforts involved, but still it is spontaneous. When you terribly miss someone, you start crying spontaneously. Even though to cry, there's a lot of effort to take place, needs to take place, and also there will be a lot of pain. But still, you cannot stop the pain. You cannot stop your tears from falling down. You keep crying, crying, crying. So similarly, when you have when you have true renunciation, then you cannot stop longing for an escape from samsara. Then you feel like you are in a prison and that you have been wronged. So you should try. You should try from every fiber in your body. You will try with every fiber in your body to come out of that prison, to escape that prison, to be released from that prison. And when every moment of your life in that place, you now feel as been misjudged, you now feel as been mistreated, and you now feel as you want to come out of it no matter what, every moment of your living and breathing in that particular place. So when such an incident occurs, then that is a sign that you have true remark. So this is the yeah. So the first of the three verses has been covered. The first aspect, that renunciation aspect, has been completed. So next week we will pick up from the second aspect, which is the bodhicitta. So whether it's actually bodhicitta or not, and what it entails and everything, we will talk about next week. Okay. Yeah. So open for question and Q&A, and I believe that there was a question from last week that it has remained unanswered.
Rinpoche, we have one question from last week.
Yes, please go on.
Yeah, prostrate to Rinpoche. When we try to cultivate renunciation, how to avoid of stained mind? Because most of the time we enjoy leisure, and sometimes we have a very strong renunciation when we meet some adversities. Will you please teach us or give us a suggestion on how to practice? Thank you, Rinpoche.
Yes. So very good question. Very, very good question. Okay. So first of all, this is not. This is a very common obstacle that we face when we practice, especially onto renunciation. For practitioners, it is a hurdle. It is a hurdle that it often have to face with. So in the monastery, we have a name for this kind of renunciation. We call it the hair-like renunciation, like a hair. So it's called a hair-like renunciation, although I don't have hair. So it's called a hair-like renunciation or hair form renunciation, form of a hair. In Tibetan, we call it Ngejung Pusu. Ngejung means renunciation. Pusu means like a hair, shaped like a hair. So a hair is not a strong thing. Hair is one of the thinnest things on our body that is visible to us. Maybe not the thinnest, but one of the thinnest things. So it would break very easily. It is a form. It is a certain form. It has some strength, but if you pull it, it will come off and it will be torn away very easily. So this is called hair-like renunciation. So that's why if you now look at the text talks about true renunciation, pure renunciation, proper renunciation, things like that. So this is to differentiate the true renunciation. This is to differentiate it from hair-like renunciation and other forms of renunciation, which is quite random and comes and goes. So every time we have an adverse, as you asked, every time we face an adversity, every time there is an obstacle, we are really fed up with the things going on with our life. Like let's say we have a bad business deal, and our business, let's say you have a business that went bankrupt, you lost a job and things like that, and you feel like, okay, everything is going to fall down, everything is going to crack, and everything is going to crash down on you, and there's nothing worth living for, nothing worth keeping up for, and we covered that last week. So you feel like that, and then maybe after a week or a month or a year, everything settles down, your business starts to grow, the loved one that has deserted you comes back to you, or anything. The reason for which you are renouncing the world has been resolved, then your renunciation also will be gone into thin air. So that renunciation is called hair-like renunciation. So therefore, what we have to do is that is one part. Now, what we have to do, the solution to that is, for example, when we see something fishy, right? When we smell something fishy, when we see, okay, let's say we are going to the market to buy some things, some objects to the shop. We are going to buy something. So we look at the object. If everything seems to be intact, then we just buy it. There's no question. But we really wanted to buy that object. Let's say we want to buy a mug. Or let's say we want to buy a bag. We want to buy a bag, but we went to the shop, and then we look at we check the object that we are buying, the bag. So if everything seems to be okay, then we just buy it because we are buying it from the reputable shop anyways. But even when you are buying it from a reputable shop, if we see there is some problem with the thread, or maybe there's some marking on the hide, on the skin of the bag, or if we see some defect, then we don't put aside the defective bag and just get another one without checking anything and just go like that. What we will do is, now we will dig deeper. We will go, now if we see one defect item, then we will look at all the bags that, if we must buy a bag, then we look at all the bags that we need, and then check every detail for any defect. Is the thread coming off? Is the branding, the logo, everything is intact or not? We check everything. And after checking everything, if everything seems to be intact, then of course we can buy. Otherwise, even if it seems like a reputable shop, if something is off, then we dig deeper and deeper and deeper. We just don't leave it aside. So similarly, samsara is something like that. Samsara is like a reputable shop. There are so many good things in samsara, seemingly good things, if you call it from the Buddhist Dharma perspective. From a Dharma point of view, from a Dharma perspective, everything is seemingly nice in samsara. Not nice, but seemingly nice. Because to be nice has to be nice eternally. until it diminishes, of course. Our for example, something like a candy, a candy, a cake. The taste of the cake remains same, right? But if we keep eating the cake for like 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, of course the cake will become tasteless for us. The taste of cake itself has not changed. It has remained what it is. So if the cake is naturally tasty, or is the source of happiness or source of joy, since the taste of the cake has not changed, our perception of the taste of the cake should also not change, even if we eat for hours and hours and hours on end. But if we keep eating for maybe 1 hour, just one cake, of course, we will want to renounce the cake. We will be. So that means that from the cake side, nothing has changed. So our attachment towards the cake has decreased, and the cake is no longer able to give us what it used to 1 hour ago. So that means the happiness, the so-called happiness that is given or that is produced by the cake is temporary. If the so-called happiness that you derive from the cake is real, as in the sense that it's solid, then no matter how long you eat the cake, it will always be the same taste. So in this regard, from the Dharma point of view, from a Dharma perspective, all the good things in samsara seen as a seemingly good thing, not actually. All the pleasurable things in samsara are seemingly pleasurable, not the source, not an actual source of happiness and pleasure. So okay. So when you see all the flaws and faults, then you will want to, if you see the same flaws and faults in every bag that the shop is selling, right? Every bag that the shop is selling, then you will no longer buy from that shop. You will leave that shop. Maybe you will even leave that buying from that brand even, right? So with samsara, what is happening is like that. We go to, when we go to buy the bag from the shop, the bag looks nice, but it has some flaws with the thread and with the logo. And another bag has no problem with the logo, but has a problem with the thread. Another bag has a problem with the logo, but not with thread, and so on and so forth. There's always some flaws. So when you are looking for an impeccable bag, you are paying a lot of money for an impeccable bag, beautiful impeccable bag, and you find flaws in that bag, then you cannot buy it from that. You cannot buy that bag, and you cannot buy that from that shop even. So when you leave that shop, this is a form of renunciation. You are renouncing that shop. When you leave that brand, you are renouncing that brand. So what happens here is that similarly with Dharma practice, with the practice of renunciation, you keep on digging more. When you see one flaw, you keep digging for more flaws, and the more and the more flaws that you see, you will be fed up with all the flaws that that samsara has. And then, as mentioned in the third verse today, today's last verse, when you become accustomed to thinking or to practicing in the previous line, remember, the third line says, when through growing accustomed to thinking in this way meaning when you accustom yourself So thinking in the first verse and the second verse, then hopes and pleasure for samsara will cease to rise even for an instant, and then we will be wanting to come out of samsara, whether it's day or night, and that is what we should be working towards.
Sorry, Rinpoche. You said that there's two kinds of renunciation. The first one is the form of a hairline, and the second one.
Okay, so two kind of renunciation. Yeah. Okay, so we don't call it two kind of renunciation in the book. We just say, well, I just said it to simplify things. The hair-like renunciation is not a real renunciation. Yeah, it's not a real renunciation. There's only one renunciation, but just to make it easier to understand, I just said there are two types of renunciation. One is the hair-like renunciation. Even though we use the term hair-like renunciation, it is not a real renunciation. From a Dharma perspective, this is not a real renunciation because you are not renouncing samsara. If you are not renouncing samsara, it's not a renunciation at all. You just fed up with one thing. That's it. This is not a proper renunciation. Yeah, you just that if this is renunciation, then hatred also can be renunciation. Because when you hate someone, you really wanted to get rid of that person. You really wanted to escape from that person. Then hatred is also a renunciation. So then everything messes up. So this is not a renunciation, but we call it. It's like a mockery. It's like it's not a real thing. It's a mockery. We call it hair-like renunciation. But it's not a real renunciation. Okay, so we will conclude here for today.